She told me she was home ironing my shirt, but I was parked outside the motel watching her step into room 145. It was late Wednesday morning and there I was, just sitting behind the wheel of my car parked right outside the Sunhaven Motel, staring at the faded sign like it might give me answers. I was waiting for my wife Rachel. We'd been living together for over 3 years and by noon she was supposed to be meeting an old friend of hers, Travis, someone I knew pretty well too. Funny how things twist and turn, isn't it? Travis used to be one of my closest friends not that long ago. And Rachel? She was supposed to be my future. Thing is, Rachel and Travis go way back, high school sweethearts. I guess you could say they had history. Travis was even the first guy she'd ever been with, and I still remember the exact night he told us about it. It was one of those post-shift summer hangouts just after graduation, when we'd all clocked out of our part-time jobs and found some curb or truck bed to sit on and shoot the breeze. Travis had this big flashy Dodge Ram. The kind with more chrome than class, a roomy bed, extended cab. He always kept blankets and snacks tossed in the back like he expected an adventure at any given moment. That night, with his usual smug grin, he leaned in and said, "Boys, I finally got her. Picked her up right after graduation." Apparently, Rachel had thrown on her cousin's prom dress over a black Harley-Davidson tee, paired with tiny jean shorts that barely held on. She did look stunning back then, those wild brown curls down her back, piercing green eyes that practically glowed under moonlight, lashes that went on forever. She had that kind of quiet beauty that made you stop and notice. Travis described the whole night like it was a conquest. The worst part? We just sat there listening. He said they were supposed to go to Jed Martin's big graduation party afterward, one of those backyard gatherings with bonfires and half-cooked hot dogs. But instead, he pulled her aside and said he had something important to tell her. He hinted he might propose, said she looked nervous but curious. And then he admitted, so casually like it meant nothing, that he slipped a couple of pills into her drink. Said she got all fired up and affectionate in no time. That moment stuck with me even if I tried to pretend it didn't. He said she took off those shorts and sat down on a blanket, and when the moment slowed down she started crying. Quietly. Just sitting there, tears slipping down her cheeks while she looked at him, waiting. And what did he do? Told her he'd joined the Navy and was shipping out in a week. Asked her to wait for him. She said she'd think about it. And that was it. No party. No Jed Martin story to laugh at later. Just that moment burned into my mind. Looking back, the three of us, me, Rachel, and Travis, we'd been tight since grade school. Played ball together. Travis hated losing and always said the refs were blind whenever I beat him. But the guy had charm. He was the kind of guy girls noticed. Senior year, he was crowned prom king and voted most unforgettable in the yearbook. I guess the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. Back in high school, I was pretty active when it came to sports. My name's Wyatt Templeton, and while I skipped out on basketball, I threw myself into football during the fall and volleyball year-round. Volleyball was really where I found my groove. I stuck with it all 4 years. Then come spring I swapped out the court for the field and played on the lacrosse team. Sports were my thing. Maybe it was about more than just staying in shape. It felt like the one place I could really prove myself. Now, if I'm being honest, Glenn, yeah, that same Glenn, he was built like a linebacker and carried himself like he owned the world. The guy always seemed like he was destined for bigger things. Meanwhile, I took a different path. I ended up working with kids, took a job in education. Not a flashy profession, not something that came with bragging rights or fat paychecks. But I loved it. Still do. Watching kids grow, helping shape who they become, it gave me something money never could. While I was knee-deep in lesson plans and field trips, Glenn went on to the University of Pennsylvania and eventually scored a high-profile position at a major law firm downtown. He liked to make sure people knew it too, always talking about his latest bonus or how he was closing some big deal. His paycheck probably doubled mine 10 times over and he wasn't shy about it. I checked the clock on my dashboard. It was already 11:40. Almost the end of the workday. I remember feeling this knot in my stomach as I sat there waiting, knowing what Rachel had planned with Glenn that afternoon. I was desperate for answers, even if I already knew deep down what I was about to see. It reminded me of a night years back, one that still stuck with me. Our car had broken down just as I was trying to take Rachel on this special date. I'd planned the whole evening, dinner at Sailor's Harvest, a nice little seafood place just outside the city, and then tickets to a play downtown. I really wanted to make it memorable. But of course life had other plans. We didn't even make it out of the neighborhood before the car sputtered and died on us. It was an old Hyundai I'd bought secondhand from a guy who swore up and down the engine was solid. Turns out that wasn't exactly true. The thing just gave up. I stood there like an idiot, staring under the hood like I knew what I was looking at. I didn't. Not a clue. Rachel stood beside me, giving me this half smile that was part sympathy and part amusement. She didn't say anything mean, just calmly reached into her purse, pulled out her phone and called her dad. He showed up about 30 minutes later in that old Chevy of his, tied a spare tire to the front bumper, and actually pushed us all the way to their place. I offered to drive, but he insisted. So I sat behind the wheel trying not to mess it up while he nudged the car down the road. Rachel sat in the passenger seat, quietly cheering him on. Later she made coffee for the three of us. Her dad patted me on the shoulder, told me I did all right. Rachel looked at me like I'd done something heroic just for trying to fix the thing. Even though I felt completely useless, their kindness stuck with me. That praise, small as it was, meant the world to me that night. While I was fumbling with busted engines and public school budgets, Glenn was off making a name for himself. Big firm, big money, big talk. And Rachel? She was finishing up her senior year of high school, still the star of every event. I'll never forget the night she was crowned queen at the town carnival. Rain poured from the sky, but it didn't stop them from handing her the crown. And Glenn? He was supposed to be there too. But he wasn't. Said he wanted to stay back on the beach. No explanation. That was just Glenn, always doing things on his own terms, even when it didn't make sense to anyone else. Looking back, I knew deep down I wasn't her first choice. I was just the one who showed up when she needed someone. My role that rainy evening? I was her stand-in, the escort she settled for because the guy she really wanted, Travis, didn't come through. She never said it out loud, but I felt it every second. Still, I was there. I showed up for her. It wasn't just a sprinkle that night, it poured. A heavy, drenching kind of rain that soaked through clothes and skin alike. Rachel had brought her usual outfit, but for the parade and her coronation as queen of the city's carnival, she changed into something elegant, flowing and cream-colored, something that looked like it came out of a boutique window. She looked stunning, of course. Like a storybook character, the kind little girl's dream of becoming someday. We smiled for photos, she waved to the crowd, graceful in every way. And me? I stood beside her in wet jeans, stained with grass from where I'd slipped earlier, and a t-shirt that clung to me awkwardly. I probably looked like I wandered out of a hardware store. When the rain let up, we strolled the fairgrounds. Her dress, which had gone a little see-through in the downpour, finally dried. People stopped staring. Everything seemed to go back to normal. I treated her to a burger and fries at one of those stands with flickering lights. We laughed a little. She smiled. But I couldn't shake this quiet ache in my chest, like she was smiling for the crowd, not for me. There were always two sides to Rachel. Sometimes she was this radiant, unstoppable force. The girl everyone noticed, the kind who owned a room just by stepping into it. Other times she was soft and hurting, quiet and unsure. It didn't matter which version of her I got on any given day. I loved them both. I loved all of her. She was Rachel. And when she agreed to marry me, I thought I'd somehow defied the odds. I was just a regular guy with a modest paycheck and a second-hand car, and there she was, saying yes. I remember thinking I'd never been that happy before. From the end of our first summer together all the way through senior year, our relationship came in waves. We'd burn hot for a while, then cool off. Money was always tight, so our dates were simple. County fairs, drive-ins, demolition derbies. We made do, and most of the time we didn't mind. She never said she wanted more, but I always felt like she deserved better than I could offer. Travis, on the other hand, had a different life altogether. While I was doing my best to hold things together back home, he was finishing his senior year at Penn, rarely around, and honestly, I preferred it that way. The guy always got under my skin even back in school. But whenever he did come back, it was like the air shifted. Rachel would light up just a little more, and I'd feel myself shrinking beside her. When Thanksgiving rolled around, he showed up again, this time with some girl in tow. But it didn't stop him from asking Rachel out not long after. And she said yes. Just like that. That old feeling returned, the one that whispered I'd never be first in her heart. Still I pushed on. One night, when her parents and younger brother were upstairs, Rachel and I headed down to the basement. We curled up on the couch in front of the big screen TV, the glow of it flickering across the room. My hands were shaking when I knelt down and pulled the little velvet box from my pocket. I opened it, trying to steady my voice. Rachel, I began, heart pounding, but she cut me off. Her eyes widened with surprise, and for a second I froze, afraid she might say no. Instead, she pulled me onto the couch and kissed me hard, wrapping her arms around me like she already knew what I was going to ask. And while we kissed, she began to undress me. It wasn't rushed. We took our time, learning each other again like we were writing a new language in the silence between us. Our hands moved slowly, respectfully, yet with that tenderness that comes from knowing someone deeply. We explored each other not with lust, but with something that felt closer to reverence. It wasn't about bodies. It was about trying to say things we were too afraid to speak aloud. I used to believe Rachel was pure that night. But now, years later, I know better. She wasn't innocent, maybe not in the way I wanted her to be. Still, somehow she made me believe she was. Maybe that's the part that stings the most. The way she looked at me, the way she touched my arm like she was afraid too. I think she might have been just as nervous as I was. There's a term for this kind of moment in literature: contact. I think they call it. That brief, raw moment when souls collide and something unspoken passes between two people. But I didn't want to call it that. For me, it was something far deeper. It was love. Honest, unfiltered, and utterly consuming. Lying there, Rachel leaned in close and whispered something in my ear. I don't even remember the exact words, not really. What I remember is the way they made me feel, like I'd found my home in her voice. She was it for me. She had always been it. I told her so too. I poured it all out in a shaky voice, admitting she was my everything. She smiled, a little sad, a little unsure. I feel the same, to you. That's what she said. 4 or 2, I've never really understood what she meant. Even now, it rattles around in my head sometimes when I'm alone. After we dressed, we went upstairs to show her parents the ring. Rachel held out her hand proudly. They looked at it, nodded, said all the right things, but their faces told a different story. Relief, not joy. At the time, I thought maybe they were just being parents, worried, protective. But now I'm not so sure. That night, I thought it was the beginning of our forever. But in hindsight, maybe it was just the beginning of a slow unraveling. Rachel had always been involved in everything. Captain of the girls' soccer team, voted most likely to succeed. And me? I was just the guy who loved her more than anything. At least that's how I saw it. I looked down at my watch. 11:55 p.m. 5 minutes left until everything I thought I knew, every dream I'd built around us, came crashing down. Soon Rachel would meet Travis, Mr. Successful, Mr. Ivy League, right there in room 145. And me? I'd be sitting in my car watching the pieces fall apart from a distance. I'd seen the emails. That's how I found out. She'd left her laptop open, the screen glowing in the dark like it wanted me to see it. No password. Just open, waiting. The messages were all there, long, sentimental notes between her and Travis. She said she missed him. That she thought about their high school days, the laughter, the excitement. She wrote things I hadn't heard from her in years. Why didn't she protect those letters? Why did she leave them open like that? Was she careless, or was it some part of her crying out? We had 2 kids already, Jenny, born 3 summers ago, and Craig, who came along just last October. And now she was late. Missed 2 cycles. 3 kids. 3 kids with a woman who might not even love me anymore. I hate myself for even thinking it, but those words creep into my mind. Could they all be mine? I try to shove the thought away, but it lingers. Rachel had always said she'd never cheat. She told me she hated people who lied, who betrayed the ones they loved. And yet here I was, questioning everything. All because of those letters. Those awful, sweet, desperate letters. And Travis, he wouldn't stop. I saw his messages too, always pouring his heart out, whining about how his marriage was failing, how he needed someone who truly understood him. And who was that person according to him? Rachel. She told him to back off. Said she was married. Said he should talk to his wife or get help. But he kept pressing, kept writing. And little by little, I think something inside her shifted. I could see it in the way she stared out the window. The silence between us grew longer. She laughed less. And when I touched her back at night, offering those little massages she always used to love, she barely noticed anymore. Even now, I still do those small things. Rub her shoulders, kiss the top of her head, whisper that I love her, hoping they still matter. Hoping they still mean something. But as I sit here tonight, just minutes before everything might change, all I can think is, how did we get here? How did I become the man who fears the truth more than the lie? I wish I hadn't opened those emails. I really do. See, I've always believed, call me old-fashioned, that when 2 people decide to marry, they're not just sharing a house or a name. They're giving each other something sacred. Their hearts, their trust, their whole selves. That's what I gave Rachel. And I thought she gave the same to me. She used to say there was no one else for her. That her heart, her body, her soul, they were mine. And I meant it when I said mine were hers. All of me. I never wanted to control her. I still don't. But I can't, won't, accept betrayal. Not after everything we built. I was ready to give her everything I had. Still am, honestly. I'd work myself into the ground to give her and our kids the life they deserve. That's when I called her. "Hey, it's me. Wyatt," I said, my voice steady but my chest tight. "What are you doing right now? Where are you?" She answered casually like everything was fine. "I'm home, Wyatt. Jenny's in the nursery, Craig's asleep upstairs. I'm just ironing one of your shirts." There was a silence between us, just a few seconds, but it felt longer. Then she asked, "Aren't you supposed to be at work?" I took a breath. "No. I'm in my car, Rachel. I'm parked right now, outside the Piccolo Motel." The line went dead quiet. I just saw Travis walk in and out of room 145. He looked like he was waiting for someone. "So I'll ask again, are you sure you're at home?" I could hear the hesitation in her breathing. Later that day, something else strange happened. There was a package, nothing too suspicious at first, but it gnawed at me. So I called her again. This time she answered quickly. "What's going on?" she asked, almost like she was bracing herself. I told her what I saw earlier. There was a man. He handed Travis a stack of papers. "I saw Marcia too, his wife." Then I watched Travis chase her through the parking lot. Rachel went quiet, then said, "So, what do you think happened?" I wasn't sure how to answer that. My mind was still piecing everything together. "I don't know," I finally said, "but it doesn't feel right." She took a deep breath and told me the truth, or at least part of it. "A few weeks ago," she began, "Travis started sending me emails. Said he wanted to talk. His intentions were clear, too clear. I didn't respond the way he wanted. I even reached out to Marcia, tried to shut it all down. She said they'd been at odds for a while, that Travis had never really been the man people thought he was. Then she added something that made my chest ache in a way I wasn't ready for. "You're not like him, Wyatt. I need you to know that." But how could I not compare myself to him? All those years, high school, college, he was always first in her world. The guy with the charm, the stories, the spotlight. I was the one standing off to the side, just hoping she'd look my way and mean it. I'd always feared I'd lose her to him. And maybe I had, just not in the way I expected. When I tried to move closer, to comfort her with just my presence, she started unbuttoning my shirt slowly and spoke with this warm softness in her voice. She called me smart. Wonderful. Said she remembered how quiet and thoughtful I'd been in school, how I always made her feel safe. And for a moment I felt seen. But also, lost. Because no matter what she said, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had spent years loving a woman who had always left a part of herself with someone else. I wiped a tear from my cheek even as I tried to laugh at the memory. All those football and lacrosse games I went to with Rachel. I hated both sports. Always have. But I went anyway because she loved the energy, the crowds, the feeling of belonging to something. I was just happy being beside her. I remember one night in particular. It was raining and she tried to hand me this oversized raincoat. The gesture was sweet, thoughtful, so her. But in the process she slipped and fell off the stage right in front of the bleachers. We both laughed so hard and somehow the moment turned into one of my favorite memories. It was silly, yeah, but charming in a way only she could be. Rachel had this presence. Every guy noticed her, every girl wanted to be her friend. But for some crazy reason she chose me. I was the one lucky enough to hold her hand, to sit beside her at those games, to walk her home afterward. Then she brought up prom. "What about you and Travis?" I asked, more curious than accusatory. She paused, then leaned in close, tugged gently at my shirt, unbuttoning the first layer, then the second. Her fingers moved with ease like they remembered. Then came the waistband of my jeans. "Do you remember this couch?" she asked, voice quiet. "You were with me the night I gave myself to you. Right here. It's always been you, Wyatt. No one else." And in that moment I wanted to believe her. I helped her undress, not with urgency but with care. Her words echoed in my head, reminding me of the trust and history we had. Her parents had been home that night, just upstairs. It was reckless, but it felt like our own secret universe. We weren't kids anymore, but we still held on to those fragments of innocence. Was that the beginning of our happily ever after? I wanted to think so. Story 2. I always thought of my wife, Judith, as a gift from the universe. She walked into my life like a prayer being answered, and I never stopped believing that she was meant for me. I loved her with everything I had, and I never questioned that she felt the same. Together we had a beautiful little girl, Sandra. She was 5 now, all curiosity and bright-eyed joy. Her birth changed me. In that moment, holding her in the hospital room, I felt like the luckiest man alive. Judith and I weren't wealthy, not by a long shot, but we made things work. I worked in plastic manufacturing, nothing glamorous but it paid the bills, and we lived modestly but happily. Judith and I built routines, schedules, a home filled with warmth and structure. My parents pitched in all the time, often taking Sandra to their place for a weekend so Judith and I could have some time to ourselves, to rest, reconnect, or just get life sorted. I used to think our family was a fortress, solid and unshakable, that no storm could tear through us. But then everything changed. Started with something small. One day while out running errands with Judith, we spotted a car acting strangely, creeping along behind us, tinted windows barely rolling. I got a chill. I told her to stay quiet and we ducked out of sight. The vehicle turned and drove off eventually, but for a second, it felt like we were witnessing something we weren't supposed to see. I told myself it was nothing. Then later that week the car stalled near our driveway. I popped the hood and found the problem right away, a corroded wire, one I should have replaced months ago. I cleaned it, tightened the connection, and the engine roared back to life. I was proud of myself for fixing it. It was one of the few times lately where I felt like I still had control over something. When I pulled into the driveway, I spotted Henry and James, our neighbors, standing by their own car. "There you are," Henry called out. "We couldn't find you for a bit. I just wanted to say thank you again. I finally recovered and I couldn't be more grateful." I smiled and shook his hand. "No need for thanks, Henry," I said. "We just did what needed to be done." "I owe you my life," Henry told me that evening, his voice low and sincere. "Those guys from the construction firm, they wanted me out of the way. But thanks to you they didn't get what they wanted. I won't be that careless again." He clapped me on the shoulder with a smile that felt a little too polished. "Let's not dwell on that though," he added. "I'm just really grateful. Truly." I wanted to believe him. Henry seemed like a decent guy, maybe even a good one. But something in me couldn't quite let it go. Judith, on the other hand, was quick to defend him. "Stop it, James," she said, almost laughing. "You're reading into things. Henry's just being kind. He's grateful." "I'm not accusing him of anything," I replied gently. "I just want us to be cautious. We hardly know him, and you know how I am when it comes to people we bring into our lives. Especially now. We have Sandra to think about." That name, our daughters, hung in the air like a reminder. Judith brushed it off like she didn't want the weight of it. "You're dramatizing things," she said. "We'll get to know him. In time. You'll see." But I wasn't so sure. Because just as Henry became a more frequent presence, things between me and Judith started shifting. Rapidly. She'd been chosen for some high-profile event, a project involving public figures, local celebrities, even a few national names. It was a big opportunity, no doubt about it. And at first I was thrilled for her. Truly. Judith had always been driven, always dreamed big. I wanted her to succeed, to feel proud of what she'd built. But it came at a cost. She was hardly ever home. Long hours turned into overnights. Dinners were missed, bedtime routines forgotten. She had a new circle of people around her, sharp-dressed, fast-talking colleagues who seemed more important to her than anything at home. Including me. "Nothing's wrong," she kept telling me. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. "Judith," I said one night, unable to hold it in anymore, "I don't recognize you lately. Your job, your friends, your lifestyle, it's like you've replaced your family with all of this. Have you forgotten we have a 5-year-old daughter? Sandra needs her mom. Not just her name on the daycare pickup list. She needs you." I didn't even mention the fact that I'd taken on nearly all the parenting duties. I didn't need a medal, but the silence from her side made it feel like I didn't exist. I was tired. Tired of not knowing. Tired of pretending everything was normal when the cracks were growing deeper every day. So I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her, at least not yet. But I would start watching. Quietly. I wasn't going to follow her to her job. That would be obvious. And besides, her work life was too well guarded for me to make sense of. But the club. Henry's club. That was different. That night she went there again. I stayed back, parked across the street where the lights didn't reach. Watching. Waiting. Wondering. She was inside for a while. Laughing, chatting, mingling in her new skin, the one I no longer recognized. Then all of a sudden she said goodbye to someone, grabbed her purse and walked out. Just like that. I stayed in the car, wondering where she was headed next. And more importantly, who she was really leaving behind. I moved quickly as Rachel disappeared into a white SUV with tinted windows. The car pulled up right outside the club and without hesitation she climbed in. I couldn't see who else was inside. My pulse quickened. I threw my car into gear and tailed the vehicle at a safe distance, doing everything I could to stay unnoticed. Eventually, we reached a secluded estate on the edge of town. Trees lined the perimeter and an automatic gate slid open to let them in. I parked down the road and walked the rest of the way. My hands trembled as I climbed the fence, something I never imagined myself doing. But I had to know the truth. I needed to see it for myself. Inside the property, everything looked too perfect. A modern, glass-walled building with soft lights glowing through drawn curtains. I made my way toward a side window, crouched low, trying to stay hidden. That's when I saw her, Rachel. She was inside in a bedroom. She looked startled, stumbling as if she didn't know what she was doing. My heart sank. And then he appeared. A man emerged from another room, shirtless, casually drying his hair with a towel, laughing like he didn't have a care in the world. I couldn't hear every word, but the tone, mocking, cocky, was enough. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd seen enough. More than enough. I didn't storm in. I didn't shout. I just backed away from the window, my jaw tight and my fists clenched. Every part of me burned, not just with anger but with betrayal, with the weight of watching the woman I loved become a stranger. I could have done something reckless, but I didn't. I walked back to my car in silence. No confrontation. No chaos. Just a quiet, soul-splitting ache that I'd carry with me for a long, long time. That night, I decided something. I wasn't going to fight for someone who had already walked away. Whatever history Rachel and I had, whatever dreams we shared, they ended the moment she stepped into that SUV. For me, that was the night she stopped being the woman I married. She stayed with him. That man. The one she had claimed meant nothing. And as for me, I started planning my exit. My rebirth. I didn't know what came next, just that it couldn't involve her. People talk about closure like it's some neat little box you tie up and file away. But it's not. It's jagged. It's unfinished. It leaves a scar. But sometimes, a scar is the start of healing.